Welcome to Scattered News in Conversation with, and today we have architect, property developer Billy Siziba. Billy Siziba is the founder and principal of Kayalako Properties, which is a commercial and residential property developer. It spans across a number of countries, your UK's, your South Africa, UAE, and other countries in the Middle East. But more importantly, he is here to tell us a bit about his story and actually jump into some of the work that he has done. I think one of the most notable work you've recently done is the work with Anglo American, the mining giants. So thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much for jumping in. And we want to dissect your story from home up until UAE, or maybe even beyond. So thank you so much for joining.
No, it's a pleasure. The pleasure is honestly mine. Thanks for coming through. We're humbled once again that you've got us dusty contractors, construction guys on a platform like this, Scattered News. We did good numbers.
We did exceptional numbers. We did numbers like we're doing a culture one. We did because we have a business and culture side. We did numbers as if we're doing a culture one. So I think you're number one in the business side.
It's an honor, to be honest. I think one thing about the interview itself is that it resonated with a lot of people who often you see as like blue collar. This is a lot of blue collar work.
Yes.
And I think it's an industry where a lot of people think they understand it, but they don't really know the ins and outs of trying to get into the industry. And we're going to touch on that quite a bit today. But thank you for having me once again. It's an honor, and I look forward to sharing all the valuable information we can.
Lovely. And with that being said, I want to jump straight into, this is 31 years ago, right? Mom gives birth to you. Where is this happening? Where are you from? What's the family dynamic like? Are you the youngest? Are you the oldest? Tell us a bit about that.
All right, so I was born in Zimbabwe, Bulawayo to be specific. I'm Ndebele by culture. I was born in 92, so this was like pre-apartheid.
Sure.
In South Africa.
You got the last, bit, the last bite.
Just, that last bit of that sucker punch. But at the end of the day, my parents made the decision to move to South Africa.
Sure.
I think in our family we're big believers of go where you're treated best. So sometimes, things may not be that great in your country.
Yeah.
We all know the story in Zim.
Sure. So
moved down to South Africa in 93, 94. So I was around 3 years old at the time. I've got fond memories when I was 3-4 years old in South Africa, because this was now post-apartheid, but there was still a lot of conflict. That's the thing.
Sure.
People think that it was, Mandela came to give a speech and it was absolutely peaceful. No, it was, I remember like growing up, a lot of riots in the township. It was very dangerous. I could sense it. But as a kid, your parents try to comfort you to tell you, it's still New Year's. Those aren't gunshots. That's just the crackers from New Year's. But I think credit to my mom and dad, because I think if they didn't make that move, I think my education, some of the opportunities I was able to access wouldn't have been possible. So I did all my education in Johannesburg.
So you're a Joburg boy?
I'm a Joburg boy. So I did primary school, high school down in the east of Johannesburg. Shout out to the East Rand. Highest GDP in Gauteng, by the way.
Is it?
Yeah, they're Kuruleni,
Wow, okay.
Google it. Furthermore, I spent about 6 years in the Eastern Cape.
Sure.
And that's really where the business prowess really started to mature. I started to grow a little bit in business and just started to spread my wings a little bit. This was varsity, so I attended Nelson Mandela University, as it's now called.
Sure. So I wanna take this moment and jump into prior to the move to Eastern Cape.
Yeah.
This is now 16-year-old Billy, right? The 16-year-old Bill is in high school. How were you like at that time?
All right. So I think I've changed every with every transition, every institution, there's been a different version. If you knew me in primary school, it's a different guy. High school, different guy. Varsity, different guy. Work, different guy. Business, different guy.
Sure.
So primary school, your question is high school actually.
Yes, high school, yes.
So
16-year-old particularly.
16-year-old.
Yeah. Are you one with the ladies? Are you, keeping to yourself? What's the dynamic like?
Definitely keeping to myself. Yeah, I was I wasn't very out there. I was into sport. So rugby was my sport. In fact, when I turned 16, that's when I started playing
Rugby.
Made it to the first team the following year, because I used to like the idea of being part of a team, but I was a chubby kid. So primary school, they didn't have rugby and those aggressive sports. It was just soccer, and I wasn't that good at soccer.
Sure.
But my friends were good, so it was kind of like this thing. I felt like, I feel like I don't get to be part of the team.
Exactly.
So I became quiet. Like I wasn't a popular kid.
Okay.
Right? But getting into high school, now there's this new sport, and I didn't even think of playing that sport. However, the coaches called me because of my size. They could see, okay, now this guy's got size. Come try it out. And I'm like, dude,
no,
I don't want to do this.
I'm good, yeah.
Because look, we grew up in the east of Johannesburg. It's like the farms, right? So, your Trickers van Heerdens, your Kyakus, big boys there. You understand? Sure. And it was a lot of Afrikaans schools around. So, playing in that league,
it's a totally different ballgame. You're already imagining.
You see what the Springboks look like?
Yeah. I'm
talking about high school kids. They don't look much different than what those guys look like. I don't know what these guys eat.
Absolutely, yeah.
So it was, I think that was my first challenge in life. I remember my first game that I ever played, I dislocated my wrist. Like a bad fracture.
This is first game, what's the 16-year-old you?
16-year-old me. I fractured my wrist. Some will remember this from high school. It was such a freak injury.
Yeah.
To the point I wanted to quit. I knew like the amount that the operation costed, the hospital bills that came. At the time as a kid, like mentally thinking to yourself, I can't put my parents through this thing.
Sure.
Already they've struggled to get me here in high school. Now I'm busy playing this crazy sport that is a South African sport. I'm from Zim. It's like, I remember my mom's face. She was like, no. She wanted to cry when she saw my injury.
Makes sense,
So I say that to say that was very significant in my 16-year-old life, because that was the first time I wanted to quit on myself and quit on what I had started.
Sure.
And I remember I was on the hospital bed. It was around the time it was actually 2007. That's when I was 16. So it was the Springboks were playing
World Cup, yeah.
World Cup. So now
here's the team winning, and
the TV,
and you're breaking.
I've got my
limbs
broken. So I'm like, switch this thing off. I don't want to watch this thing. And I actually asked the nurses, please switch this thing off. So that's where I was mentally. I just wanted nothing to do with this thing. And I got a visit from my dad. He came in, and I know that my parents were stressed at that time, because they're looking at a 14,000 rand bill in 2007.
Yeah.
Which is probably today close to like 34,000 if you do the math. But my dad encouraged me not to quit. He was like, nah, like this is part. As a man, you need to know how to take hits, be down, nurse your injury, come back next season stronger. That's all he told me. He didn't tell me about the bill. He didn't tell me. Because you could tell that I was sad, so he didn't allow me to wallow.
Exactly.
He switched on the TV, and he's like, watch this thing. We're gonna win this thing.
And I'm so excited to hear you say that, because one, what I'm hearing, and it's gonna be a follow-up question later on in terms of performance, right? Being a high performer, what that looks like in your industry, but more importantly in your life, but more importantly having the necessary mentors that will then say, listen, this, stop your petty party and move forward, right? So you then mess up your wrist. You're watching the game, and your dad comes through and says, listen, son, I want you to stop this, soldier it on. And what are you thinking at that moment? when he's saying that?
I was in disbelief because, we all have assumptions
Sure.
of like how our parents will react from this thing that's happened to me or whatever. So I was surprised. It was a complete 180 from what I thought he would be coming to tell me because I was fresh out the operation. I had 2 nails in my wrist.
Yeah.
I couldn't even believe this stuff was happening to me. It's like, what? I've got metal inside my bones, and it's crazy. Sure. I was in a lot of pain. So psychologically, everything for me was just like, this is what I did was unnecessary.
Yeah.
When my dad came with the opposite energy, because he's my dad and because he's the one who was, kind of in support of the sport.
Yeah.
The fact that it came from him actually changed my mind instantly. I was like, okay, like, ideally, like you hear in the movies that, you gotta pick yourself up and get back. But I was looking at my injury. I didn't even know if I could write again. Like
that's how
my
bad
hand,
it was.
You see how your hand is connected to your wrist? My hand was separated. That's how bad it was.
So there was, luckily there was no, nerve.
Nerve damage.
Yes, nerve damage. Yeah.
But I couldn't move my fingers. You understand? So
psychologically, I can imagine how
I'm worried. I've got exams.
A 16-year-old is like my arm.
Dude, I had an exam coming up, and when I got back to school, like, it was kind of like it was weird. It was like a hero's welcome type of thing. Even the principal knew about it. And
sure.
Like, no, everyone was encouraging because it went through across the school.
Sure.
Like, I was a freak.
You trended. You trended.
I trended before trending.
You went viral. You went viral
for sure.
Interesting. And then, so you finish your high school.
Yeah.
In the east.
No. Well, in the east of Johannesburg.
In the east of Johannesburg, yeah. Yes. And then you go to the Eastern Cape.
Yeah.
So a common theme here is east now.
Somehow, yeah.
Now you're also doing business in the Middle East.
Right. That's crazy.
Look, I'm no astrologer, but anyway.
Yeah.
You get to Nelson Mandela Bay University. And is it Nelson Mandela now?
Yeah, it's Nelson Mandela University.
Yes, Nelson Mandela University. Apologies. Anyway, so you move on. You get into what? Do you jump into architecture straight on? Or do you dabble around with different courses before you find this one?
Let me tell you something. I knew what I wanted to do overall when I was 10 years old. I knew I wanted to be a business person.
Sure.
Businessman. If you asked me at 10 years old, grade 4, what do you want to be? I'll tell you businessman. And people will be confused because it's like, okay, but what business?
Like I'll see.
Yeah, I was like, it doesn't matter. I just want to be able to be in control. Because my dad is the person that I saw for the first time in real life, not music videos.
Sure.
Being in control of
his life,
of money.
Yeah.
Like, I'm talking like the literal, like, it's not about, he's like, because you don't know what that means at 10, being in control of your life. But he's the first person that I saw, like, being in charge, like paying people cash, and like being in charge of people listening to him, getting things done. So I was like, oh, that's what my dad spends his time doing.
Sure.
I want to do the same thing. Maybe not the same,
but industry, along the same.
But I want to be in charge. That's just what I knew. So I only found out what architecture was from a friend of mine in high school. He was like top 10 student. I think he was top 4. Like if you narrow it down. I remember his name. His name was Grant. This guy's genius. Like, it was one of those kids.
Yeah.
This guy is smart. And I was like fortunate to be friends with him because we went to the same primary school and then we were in the same high school.
Yeah.
So, it's tough choosing a career. But I knew that I love property. I was already drawing properties from Pam Golding. I'll just copy what I see, what I like, draw it. And I was already like doing renovation ideas for my parents. This is before Pinterest, before Instagram, before you could take ideas from the internet.
Sure.
I'd take the City Times. There was a little Pam Goldings and a Remax magazine.
Yes.
So that's where I started to understand aesthetics of, because property for me is something that interested me because I used to visit. I used to love, like go to people's houses.
Yeah.
My parents would tell me, no, it's not going to Zula.
Yeah.
Stay at home.
Yeah.
But I was that kid, like, yo, I wanted to. If you had a nice crib,
I want to go there.
I'm sleeping over this weekend.
Yeah.
Tell my parents I was that kid. So when I was there, I would just appreciate. I love fine spaces. That's just something about me. I love being in control of my environment, and I love fine spaces. So I think that's where that stems from when I think about it. And because there was no internet at the time, Pam Goldings and all these magazines, that's where I could see.
Where they're
homes.
selling, what's this property?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're selling.
Yeah, I remember
properties.
those, yeah.
Yeah, so you could like page through that and see, oh, this is 6 bedrooms, this. So I would draw what I'm looking at, but remix it, not knowing like technically how to do this. I didn't do EGD at school. I didn't do any technical sort of module. So by the time it was grade 11 and we were selecting subjects, I asked the smart kid, I was like, dude, I want to do this, but I thought I wanted to do engineering because I didn't know what architecture is. And he told me, because he knew me and he was very honest, he's like, dude, your math is...
Listen, buddy.
Yeah, buddy.
It's okay.
I'll be honest.
It's okay. Yeah.
But you're good at art, so why don't you try this thing called architecture? So I was like, what's that? He explained it to me. He was like, okay, it's basically the creative side of what engineering essentially is. It's the science side of it.
Sure.
You will touch base on it, but you focus more on spatial creativity. This is a 17, 16-year-old kid telling me this thing. I'm like, how do you know this stuff?
Yeah.
But I followed through. I did my research, went to told my parents this is what I want to do. It sounded good to them, so they were like, cool.
Yeah.
They were like, okay, as long as you do your geography, your science, which is actually helping me now, funny enough.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the journey, and getting into the course and all of that, that's another story. That was quite tough.
Sure.
It's easy to know, like, to think, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer, I want to be an architect. But until you know the selection criteria, what it really takes. Because you're up against another 1,000 kids that year that want the same thing you want.
That also took EGD, they also took design, they
that
have a portfolio.
Art students who have parents that own firms,
sure,
architecture firms, the biggest ones in the country. So you're up against those kids. And when you're coming from the East, you want to,
like,
your odds
I'm
are
that
stacked.
guy. But,
Your odds are stacked. So that's what that looked like.
Yeah. You mentioned something quite interesting about you're 10 years old, you're drawing, right? You are in a space where recently I was reading a book by Robert Greene called Mastery. And one of the things that he speaks about in the early parts of the book, as he's dissecting a lot of, masters in their craft, your Da Vinci's, Beethoven, he mentions, or he highlights rather, not mentions, their passage to their great success. One starts, there's an element of isolation, there's an element of hardship, but within that, somewhat of what brings solace or what brings comfort to the individual is the craft, right? It somehow brings them to a place of contentment, in as much as there's a lot of things that to the worldly eye is are tough, you breaking your wrist, or it's things like that, and struggling with subjects and things like that, but somehow there's that element of, but I can do this. There's this thing I'm really good at. So, keeping that in mind, you then get into, what's this? You then find your way around getting into architecture. Speak to me on how it allowed you to view life, or allowed you to view life in varsity. But primarily in the context of yourself and how you relate to yourself as an individual. Because one thing you mentioned earlier on was that you changed along the times. So now when architecture starts fitting in, how is that transition?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm gonna try to answer it the best I can. So looking at that transition, going into the world of varsity, finally making it was just an achievement on its own.
Yeah.
So what's interesting about your question, you said that you spoke of mastery.
Sure.
You spoke of isolation. And then you continue to speak about
Hardships.
how the craft, hardships,
Yes.
as well as how the craft itself becomes the reward.
Sure.
So, mind you, this time, as I tell you the story, when I was 16, right, I'm drawing.
Yeah.
I'm drawing already at 16 before I even know I want to be an architect. And that injury, because I was trying something new, that injury was on my right hand. I'm right-handed.
Sure.
I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to use this hand to write. I had to actually learn how to write with my left. So I was ambidextrous for that year.
Sure.
I wrote my exams with my left hand. And drawing, I attempted to draw, but it was gone.
Yeah.
It was gone. I couldn't draw with my left hand. I could write, get through exams, but I could not draw. So now, psychologically, you're thinking to yourself, okay, does this mean I need to revisit, what I want to do? Because if I can't do this, I won't even be able to put together a portfolio. So making it into varsity and getting through that thing, learning how to write again, learning how to use this wrist, even better than I could before, making it back into the first team. And then this time, that second match, getting through that. All of these things, eventually getting my full colors, eventually playing provincial,
Sure.
and all these things. It's all the rewards at the end of the day. It's the mastery of a mental game. Because I can tell you something about architecture school. That's like military school, dude. I'm not even trying to exaggerate.
That
thing is tough. It's going to test you in every way possible. And only now that I'm at least 4 or 5 years independent, running my own business, working professionally, do I realize why I needed to go through the grueling course. It's a very grueling course, and especially if you're not coming from a privileged background.
Sure.
So that transition of the mental space from high school, from primary school to high school taught me more endurance, perseverance, like getting over it mentally. That's what my dad did.
Yeah.
Like, get over it mentally.
Yes.
So it's painful. Switch on the TV, watch that game. Because you're going to feel the pain. You're not going to run away from it.
Yeah.
So same thing, everything in that course. It's tough. Rejection, you're going to face it every day in that course. You're going to get told, this design is not going to work. This thing.
And you're getting it in real time. I think that's one of the things, right? It's one of the things that speeds up a process of learning is getting results in real time. Someone says, you're done, drawing. It's like, no, I don't like it.
Yeah. It's either they don't like it, and that's the thing. We get upset because it's not a mathematical thing. Architecture is not a mathematical thing. The moment you introduce art to something, you are introducing objectivity.
Sure.
So now someone might have an objective opinion about what your design is.
Sure.
Because of their preference. So you have to navigate this.
Yeah.
And the thing is, the cost to you is the fees that you pay, already struggling to make. And if you don't pass and if you don't do well, that's that.
Yeah.
So with everything, it was fast paced, it was testing, it was grueling. There were times where I failed. Had to repeat a couple of modules time and time again. But like I say, and like you said, it's the craft. Because now in business, it's so easy for me to go that extra mile, that extra push that's necessary, and it makes me a hell of a lot more competitive.
Sure.
Because I actually went through it. It's not, I wasn't given this, I didn't take over anyone's company, built it.
Yeah.
So it gives you that edge, and you be in your own lane. Right? You be in your own lane. And when you're in your own lane, only when you're in your own lane, you get to be creative, you get to do what you, that's where our Tim Cook and all these guys are operating, or Elon.
Yeah.
When you're in your own lane, it's not an industry where it's easy to get in. You've earned your position.
Yeah.
So that's what I love about those three transitions, primary, secondary,
and tertiary. Now, within your tertiary, I think it's a natural progression of any other, varsity students' journey, and more so in South Africa, right? You're running towards, you're taking all the setbacks and the rewards, and you're moving forward, and you are finishing, right? You're coming to finishing your course. What's your thinking like at that time? Are you saying, have you still kicked in to build the entrepreneur, or are you still looking at it from, when I finish this, I wanna go work for this firm? And so where was your mental frame around the time when you're finishing?
To tell you the truth, I tried many times to run away from what I'm doing now. I was always encouraged by people along the way. It's just small voices telling me, no, dude, finish your degree. I wanted to drop out so many times. You have no idea. Even in business, I wanted to quit. And there's always just one or two people that are like, dude, carry on, because this is your gift.
Sure.
You understand? So your question was, going through all these stages, what are the things that keep me motivated to continue?
Before we jump into that, I think more importantly, my question is centered around, as you are getting to the finishing, or as you're getting to finishing your varsity career, what's your mental state at that moment in time? Are we still build the entrepreneur, or are we trying to figure his way out?
I'd say more build the entrepreneur, because I was already touching money in varsity. So I think that's what made it a little bit tricky for me to kind of get into the idea of, okay, I'm going to go work for someone. But what pushed me to actually go and work for somebody is the fact that I'd already sort of built in a job, if you may, because I was getting mentored while I was in varsity. Remember I told you it was a challenge for me to pay those fees.
Sure.
Architecture fees are not cheap. It's like trying to become a pilot. You got to find the money to pay for your flight time.
Flight time, yeah.
So similar to architecture, you got to really like pay. And that's not just fees. Each project costs you money. You got to put money down. Yeah, because you're buying materials, you're printing. Man, it's a lot. You build models. So like models like that, those class models. We're building models and all kind of things which explain your design. So those things cost money. So paying for books, you're paying for that, you're paying for past papers, all kinds of things. You're just constantly paying. So that's why I had to start a business while I was in varsity. It came from a need. It slowly turned into like a passion. So I had a couple of businesses in.
A couple of businesses.
And
what spaces were these businesses in?
Fitness and health.
Yeah. Okay. Were you like a personal trainer, or what are you doing? What is the?
So with all my businesses, I try not to be the guy who's directly giving the service.
Okay.
Right. I'm the guy who understands the business. Remember what I told you? I wanted to be on a business.
Sure.
So I'm always looking at the business of a thing. So if I'm telling you I'm making these microphones, I will be the guy to understand the business or the value chain of a business, where the money should be running, and then how we get an output from that money that we put in. That's what I look at, and I look at branding, and I look at putting the right people in place.
Okay.
So when it came to fitness, I wasn't a personal trainer. I was learning software. I was learning a lot of Photoshop, photography. That was the background. And then with that, I started doing photo shoots for people with clothing brands and things like that. So I was like, okay, this is a clothing brand. How does it work? So I'm always collecting data to put it into a business.
So you're like a physical embodiment of what Scattered is, getting into the business of different things. Yeah. Basically. But yeah, go on.
Basically, so when I left varsity, I'd already made a deal with a firm who was it's one of the big firms in Sandton.
Sure.
My mentor is the CEO of that firm, AMA Architects. So they were kind enough to have paid for my postgraduate fees.
Nice.
Because I did so well in my final undergrad, and my honors. So I made sure that, okay, now I have to kill it. I'm motivated a lot by, if there's good funds behind a project, also, if we have a good deal, hey man, you're going to see the best work from me.
Yeah.
You're going to see the best
bands make him dance. Yeah.
Hey man, bands, yeah.
Yeah.
The bands, if the bands speak, I'm performing. So I performed well, and I knew, look, I'm already touching money. I made my first 100K while I was in varsity. For me, that was crazy.
And at what age was that?
Man, it's nothing. I mean, these kids making this kind of money.
I mean,
I was 24, 25.
24,
yeah,
25.
Yeah.
Making your first 100K
Yeah.
from your business, more importantly.
Yeah. I was impressed because I didn't think the business would make that kind of money. I was like, this is supplementing my fees.
Yeah.
So going back into the working environment, I wasn't going to be able to do it as well, be as integrated.
Sure.
But I knew that I owed my mentor.
Yes.
So out of integrity, I was like, okay, I'm going to sacrifice a year, 2 years, work. And when I started working, let's just say, I hated it, man. It was hard, like, integrating with everyone.
Yeah.
It was hard for me to adapt to people that I worked with.
Yeah.
I do well. I think the second company that I worked for, I was involved in a lot more projects, but I started building Kayalako while I was
yes, actually,
working.
I wanted to jump into that after this to say, then in that, where does Kayalako start? And what's driving the vision at that time for your establishment for Kayalako?
So at the time where the inception of Kayalako, it was a time where I was so over business. I started businesses, a lot of them had failed, and because I was trying to work and run a business at the same time, the business I was running, the fitness business I told you about, that came crashing down. So mentally I was in a space where I was like, I'm over this, and I'm also over my job. Pre-COVID.
Sure.
This is 2019, pre-COVID. So I had no idea what
Of
was
course.
So
a lot of people didn't, and I think it really did. What's this? There's an expression, I think they mostly use it in the stock market to say, only when the tide is low we get to see who is swimming naked, So it got to expose a lot of people to opportunities, but it also had people, I think a lot of people reevaluating their lives and their goals and their aspirations.
Exactly.
So one of the people.
No, definitely one of those people. And as I'm creating this business, what's on my mind is that, look, I really want to make a comeback on a business, because the business I had built prior to this was pretty dope.
Yeah.
It was quite a dope business. I put a lot of heart and soul into it. And the thing is, once you put a lot of heart and soul into something, you almost get sentimental.
Of course, it becomes very difficult.
I cried in that business. Like, I feel like that was my baby.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to feel like this again. I didn't want to feel like, oh my God, like I put so much into this. It's like putting a lot into a relationship and then break up, That's what it felt like. So I was like, with this one, I'm not going to take it too hard. I know I've done this many times. I've built many businesses. So I literally designed the whole Kayalako Properties logo in 15 minutes while I was at work.
Sure.
I was so over it. I didn't want to have any sentimental feeling towards it and give you this amazing story.
Sure.
So I just put things together, created a page, and then I was being mentored at the time.
Yeah.
Registered the business and just went on with it. So the idea then was just to get some, freelance gigs. That's what it was, because I'm obviously working as an architect.
Yeah.
But those gigs started to grow. Soon I was making more than my salary. So, yeah.
How soon?
Yeah.
How soon? Let's hear what the people say. How
within
soon?
Months.
Within 3 months.
I registered this business in March. I already started making money 2 months after registering the business. Within a month or 2 months, somewhere along there.
And how realistic is that for a lot of people? Or could you say a part of it is you just being at the right place at the right time? Or is that generally a realistic overview of, a business?
You have to think when you start a business. Remember, there's business all around us. Remember, business, all it is is finding a need. The more clinical you can be about what do these people need, tap into how much they're already paying for it.
Sure.
And then present yourself as another service provider for that thing. If you're actually clued up on that thing. So I'm not gonna go and start a SpaceX now when I know nothing about
space exploration. Exactly, yeah.
Because then that's you're thinking of this the wrong way. If you want a business to work, you need to think of other people. Like, what is the problem? What are people struggling with in this area? I'm seeing there's money. Find the problem. So if I make bottled water, sure. What is the problem? I have to look at the market. I have to look at where's the money transacting. Which part of the value chain can I service? Yeah. That's the same way I thought about Kayalako. So to answer your question, perhaps it's not realistic that you can make money in the first month. It all depends on what's your value proposition, number one. And number two, which part of the value chain are you in? Are you in the distribution, or are you in the front line? Or are you on the back end?
Sure.
The packaging, the warehousing, or the production. Is there enough of an industry in the country you live in to actually propel you forward?
Too, yeah.
Is the timing right? What's happening in the market? Is the market down? Is it up? So these are the questions you got to ask yourself. It's not just about, I want to be a business person. Sure. I want to have this logo. I want to have business cards. I want to have offices. You're thinking of it the wrong way. Those things come after you've created a business. So that's why it was already easy for me. I already could tell that, most of the big architecture companies, they're doing commercial. At that time, 2019, commercial was booming. It was peaking.
Yes.
Right? A lot of money they were making there. So it left room for the smaller guys like us,
sure,
to come in and take the residential market.
Yeah.
So at that time, people are getting, you remember 2019, things were booming. Everything was fine.
Interest rates were low. People were getting bonds.
Exactly.
Buying houses, buying apartments. So yeah,
it seemed like nothing is going to happen.
Exactly.
But in the back of my mind, I'd always been telling my friends, guys, something's coming. Every 10 years, something happens.
Yeah.
Let's look at it. 2008, the housing market crash. Prior to that, it was the whole Y2K.
The tech bubble
bubble, the .com bubble.
Yeah.
And then, come on, I knew it was 2019. I know something's going to happen. I didn't know it was COVID or anything, course. But I knew there's going to be some crash. I've been speaking to it in the labs with the guys in varsity. I was like, guys, things are too good. Don't know when. I didn't want to be a conspiracy theorist. Yeah. I was like 2020, 2021, 2022, somewhere along the lines, because it's either 2 years before, 2 years after, where there's a crisis. So I knew I cannot afford to be employed. I just knew I cannot afford to be employed. So I wasn't ready. I was already planning to quit my job the following year, but I was 6 months earlier, I got fired.
Yeah.
And that just pushed me into the deep end. So
yeah.
When you got bills to pay, make sure your
name is Bill.
Tight. Yeah,
you need to make sure you're on top of your game.
Exactly. Yeah.
I love how even though you got pushed to the edge, you still keep within the same theme of betting on yourself.
Yeah.
But you also mentioned mentors and how much of their influence has, propelled you to be where you are now. Mentors. Starting with I think the first one that you mentioned was your father. So, then obviously professionally, how have they come into play to create the Bill that is here today?
Tremendous. Everywhere along the way, you have to be a student. And a student to not just your elders, a student to just people that have the enlightenment and the knowledge that you don't have. And that goes beyond age. So it's been pivotal for me to have all these mentors along the way. Like you mentioned, my father in those moments.
Yes.
Sometimes, you may not have the best dad who's always there, like taking you to the games. My dad never took me to the games.
Yeah.
But he was there when it mattered, when I was in hospital.
Yes.
Yes. So when he was in hospital, that's where I needed him. He was there. Mentors along the way. So I mentioned my mentor. His name was Adrian Mazuro. So Adrian Mazuro is one of the big guys at Center.
Sure.
He owns AMA Architects.
AMA.
AMA, yeah.
AMA, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, dude, like the guy knows all the big shots who are, some of them are lecturers at Harvard,
Sure.
Oxford, Borem Koolhaas, like, Schema Libon, you know.
Sure.
So I knew this was a privilege for me to be around a guy like this, one of the
course,
best
yeah.
guys in South Africa. And this thing of best guys is not really about the money that you make, how big your firm is, because he's got a very small size firm, keeps things tight.
Sure.
Jewish man. But there's so much I've learned from him about my craft of architecture.
Yes. The depth.
The depth of
yeah.
it, because I was very shallow. Remember, I was copying things from magazines. That's where it is. But the full depth of what makes this the art is the discipline that's involved around the business of it. That's where I got to see the business of this thing. So he was a mentor for specifically that. I had mentors for other aspects of my business, like the way I'm able to interpret business now. A man by the name of Elon Reyes.
Elon Reyes.
Elon
yes.
Reyes. Shout out to Elon. When I did the pitch and polish competition, it's one of these business competitions that they run in the country. I got to meet him, and the privilege of meeting him, first person to bash my ideas. Everyone was praising, singing my praises all along. And you know when you win and you get on this high.
And you get a big head.
Yeah, I was going to the next round. I got this big head. I'm thinking I'm gonna crush this thing.
Sure.
And then he told me, here's the flaws about your idea. And he's got a great book called Lose the Business Plan.
Okay.
I think you should put it up for the people to
Sure.
lose the business plan. Because why? We like to think just because we've written down this business plan, things are going to go accordingly.
I mean, look, COVID happened.
COVID happened.
Yeah. If there's anything anyone should know at this present moment is that anything can happen.
Anything can happen. So it's
Yeah.
like, how's your business plan going to save you? So he's very pragmatic in his approach to business. And I learned that from him. This was prior to COVID because I did that competition 2016. So I'm getting all these little things, and I'm still young at that time. 2016, how old was I? 23.
Yeah.
So I'm being mentored by these people, and all of that is adding value. Maybe you could be mentored this year, and in 3 years' time,
It starts to materialize.
Yeah. So they played a tremendous role. Some were mentoring me for a while, and then 5 years later I come back, and
Yeah.
it's a back and forth thing. And some mentors I have are younger than me. I've got one of my mentors, Gervais Sanos. He's teaching me about stocks, about investing, because that's another aspect about what we do. You gotta be investing for a rainy day.
Of course.
Our industry, like any industry, has got its ups and downs.
You need those financial assets. You need to have a healthy balance sheet.
And this guy's 25.
Yeah.
I'm 31. So it's like I get mentored by younger kids. You just have to listen. Someone's got the
Content.
and the knowledge you
yeah.
need. Listen. Don't be quick to show what you know. There's value in keeping quiet. Listen. Absorb. Even if you don't agree, absorb, because maybe it won't be relevant to you now, but 2 years, 3 years time, it'll be relevant.
Sure. Man, it's so beautiful, because I was actually thinking the other day about mentors, and a friend of mine was asking me about one of my mentors, and he's like, "Oh, when last did you speak to him?" I was like, "Oh, maybe it's been a couple of months." And one of the things that I had mentioned to him was, look, I want to do something, right? Build up like the podcast, right, for now, and build it up, and then when I go back to him, I have something to say.
Yeah.
This is what I've done. Do you understand? So that we have another point. We have point B now that we work on. He speaks to me on point B, and then I'm like, okay, cool. Let me go back, work my way towards point C, and then come back. Because at the end of the day, the relationship, I mean, it's not a romantic relationship. We don't need to be texting every day.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, the value is in what, obviously, the guidance that you're providing. If you've guided me to point B, I mean, you've gotten me to point B. I need to then make my way to point C, and then say, hey, I'm a bit lost. And then
Exactly.
you understand. But it's quite an interesting point that you've made. Now, you are starting the business. Where are you getting clients?
or social media.
Yeah.
To be honest, I get calls. You know, we get calls from people who found us on Google, and we don't even run Google ads. So some clients, look, to be honest with you, some coming from God, because they'll tell me, got our number on Google. I'm like, how? Like, when I Google my company,
sure,
there's no number there. So I'm just like, wait. So you never really know. God works in His ways. A lot of our traffic, I know, our audience is on Instagram.
Yes, you guys have quite a number of followers there.
Yeah, but look, I mean, if you look at that, it's probably 1% of that following actually is clients with money who can actually afford our services.
Of course.
So that's how you got to think about it. So if that's 1%, and you've got 10,000 followers, I mean, you're already looking at, there's only 100 of those people that would honestly
sure.
Engage,
become leads before anything, yeah.
And they're also shopping further, because it's a very narrow margin that you get from social media. But remember, I'm not selling a highly scalable product.
Sure.
In the sense that I need to sell 100 a month to be profitable.
Yo.
I can have one project in that year that is profitable, that has good margins built in, because when you're looking at property development, it's not about how much money you're going to make. It's how much money can you keep.
Okay.
Because you've
Tell
already,
us a bit about that.
So think about property development. You get funding. You get funding to execute.
Sure.
On an idea, on a building eventually, right? So as soon as you're invoicing, you're already building in your profit margin in that invoice.
Okay.
Right? Meaning you've mitigated for the risks, some of the liabilities that may come, and all you have to do is manage that risk and those liabilities, also remaining profitable.
Yeah. Well,
And with every project, sometimes there's growth in the scope, there's growth in the overall deal. It might even lead to new work. You understand?
Is this in the retention of a client, or is this in development of the same project in itself?
In the same project.
Sure.
In the same client, a friend of the client. So, mind you, I said this in the first interview. People need to go qualify for financing.
Yeah.
To work with us. That's our client. We
Sure.
understand who those people are. So we already know we already have data on what the banks fund and what they perceive as a very well consolidated quotation.
Sure.
So if you already know that, and then you work backwards and you look at your team structure, your whole fee structure of that team, the negotiations you need to put in place, you understand this is mostly about keeping as much of the pie as I can. Because things happen in construction that erode your profit margins.
Yes.
So I could be at 30% in the beginning, and then because of things that happen, I'm at 25 now. I'm at 20. I'm at 15. Still profitable.
Sure.
But that margin is dropping if you don't know how to manage risk. So that's all it is. It's really risk management, money management, financial management, people management.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's definitely challenging, but it's something that you could even use that same skill in your own other endeavors. It's not just about you and the client in your business.
What are some of the biggest risks that you come across as a property developer?
Ooh, so many.
Yeah.
Look, so we're very picky on the type of projects we take on. You have to know what you're capable of. If you don't know what you're capable of, you can get your fingers burnt. It's happened to us. It happens to a lot of people. Things can look good. Remember, a project, the bigger the projects get, the more time most likely you'll spend on a project. Let's say you're building a mall.
Yeah.
Mall of Africa. That's something that took, 5-10 years? How long did that take from the
inception?
planning?
Yeah.
It can be 10 years, right? And I mean, look at the stadiums. There's a cool video I watched on YouTube recently. The guy was talking about the big construction mafia, big guys, your Growth Points and Maria and Roberts. So they're the big guys, right? So those are the guys that will be building your stadiums when it's announced that
there's
in 2005 there's a World Cup.
Sure.
They get the big cakes, and then the subcontractors beneath that. But when you're looking at them securing that funding, it's 2006. The stadiums were some of them were only finished the early 2010, before
Sure.
the World Cup started. They were just finishing up, just so they can host.
Yeah.
So that's 5 years of managing that bag.
Yeah.
And then we look at how even the management of that bag was tough for them, because there's no real precedence of building 5-6 stadiums in 5 years in the country.
Yeah.
It's new money, so it's a new challenge, but they're most likely to be the most competent. So your question is, how do you manage those risks?
Yeah. And what are they?
So those risks could be anything from in South Africa alone, we're looking at labor laws. So if you're in transgression of any labor laws, you've got your team of subcontractors and subcontractors underneath them who perhaps at some points in the year are not happy with their wages, or the rate needs to go up because interest rates went down. So you're fighting the economic fluctuations together with what the rate actually is for your tilers, for your bricklayers. Because if they're conscious and they're under unions that tell them, hey, look, you guys need to ask for an extra 2% each.
And that's an extra 2% plus for them, minus 4% possibly on your side.
Your margins are fixed. You got to get the thing done one way or another, because this is a private contract.
Sure.
Much easier with government contracts, because at least they're tied into people making those decisions with the banks and everything. However, in most cases, that's one of the main risks that you have is labor, material cost price fluctuations. So remember, South Africa, we don't produce a lot of our material. We import a lot of our steel from China.
Really? That's quite odd. I mean, you're looking at your Kumba iron ore, you're looking at your big mining companies.
A lot of our good material gets exported,
and
then a lot of the stuff that you see us building with at a residential level is imported. So it's like your Y8, your Y10s, your Y12, Y15s. Those are your reinforcement bars. Those are coming from overseas. So yes, we've got Kumba Iron and we've got all those big mining companies. So they're exporting, and some of the products we're getting are not products that we can necessarily use on a particular project.
Okay.
Because iron gets molded into different shapes, forms, for different purposes.
Sure.
So depending on how big the industry is for them to be serving us, it might be more profitable to export it than we buy from China.
So it's a size thing more important, more
scale.
Size, market cap. In terms of that industry, it makes sense to say, okay, cool, look, we probably have more guys building in China, Dubai. Those are my big clients, and then
cheaper prices.
Exactly.
But even those export prices can fluctuate. So the longer you're in a project, the more challenges you're most likely going to face.
Of course.
Face. So you want to keep a project as short as possible. Get it done quickly, because there's all these things. I mean, there's construction cartel, construction mafia that can come stop your work if they see it profitable for them. Now, there's laws in South Africa that support you having to get at least 30% of the local labor, whatever the project is, especially your big projects.
Sure.
So
as a local resident of the area.
Yeah. So government has implemented laws to incentivize the local subcontractors. So if I'm a big company, I come into the area and we're building a big stadium.
Sure.
We need to employ 30% of the people in that area.
Sure.
Right. Now, there's two ways you can go about it. Either you employ them on a project, give them a scope that, like tiling or whatever, or bricklaying, you got to give 30% to that community, which I think is a good thing. It's a good thing because it encourages inclusion. Fana Nokuthula, when China comes here and they are, giving construction loans to build bridges and things like that, it employs the people of the country.
Yeah.
So I think it's good. But what is bad is when you've got lazy people, who then take advantage of the law, and then falsely, under false pretense, are coming as community forums or unemployment forums, just to catch a quick check. So the guys who aren't even in construction, and they'll threaten your project using lethal force.
Yeah.
And it takes time. When you're losing time, you're losing
money.
You're losing money.
You're losing
literally.
money. the risks, it's crazy, man. Whenever we look at not houses, but projects from the outside, we're like, it's a house, it's a mall, and we become consumers of that. And one of the things that you've mentioned is, what's this? You have your big guys. These are your Marion Roberts and the likes. Why do we have such a small? It's like an oligopoly, right?
Oligopoly. What's that? Explain that.
It's like a monopoly, but it's with a couple of people. Like it's with a couple of companies. So maybe like a handful of, like, for instance, you have an oligopoly in your telecommunications. So you have your Vodacom, MTN, Cell C. What's this? I was gonna say ATA, but Telkom. So they pretty much have all the market share, right? Maybe there's like on pie charts, they would have 90% or 98%, and then the other would be 2%.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So why do you think that's also the case with property development? Is it because it's difficult to get in? Is it because it's tough to get clients? What exactly do you think, according to your point of view, makes it difficult for us to grow that market and have more participants?
No, for sure. So, Tiro, like, one thing you must understand, we are starting from the back,
sure,
right? The back, and I don't want to make it a conversation of those companies had great head starts,
sure,
but it's an industry that is gate kept really well. It needs to be. So when we're looking at, you called it an oligopoly.
Oligopoly, yeah.
Oligopoly. So those big companies, your Group 5, Marion Roberts, WHBO, Stefanuti Stocks, these are the guys who, at the time when the opportunity was there for them,
sure,
they stepped up, got the machinery, got to work, got the contacts together. Because remember, this is not an industry you just get handed.
Of course.
Big contracts. You're dealing with hectic engineering infrastructure, that human settlement. There's a lot of laws. There's a lot of litigation around it. So rightfully so, it needs to be people who have the experience as well as the ability to mitigate risk. You need muscle to mitigate risk, because with bigger projects, your F-up is going to be a hell of a lot more.
Of course.
You understand? Yes, you're making a lot more money, but if you don't know how to do this right, and you haven't built in all the systems that hedge you against the risk.
Sure.
Like I mentioned to you earlier, there's a lot of risk with construction. So the bigger companies are able to cushion themselves, which actually is attractive to a client, whether it be government. So in South Africa, your biggest client is going to be government.
Yeah.
So if you've got anything with government, they want to know your track record. They want to know the size of projects you built. So you have to give it to the oligopoly.
Yeah.
They came in early. They came in at the right time. Whether they were at advantage or not, that's what it takes.
Yeah.
And what I believe in, so I don't focus on, okay, give me. I have to earn my way too. Kayalako has to earn its credibility. It has to, and that may be tough. Perhaps we can't steal our way to it. Some people might decide to do that, but I've mentioned this before. If you are a person who gyms, you decide to take steroids, fine, you're going to get there quicker. However, the quality of health that you're going to have, the side effects that you're going to have from playing the game like that,
yeah,
it has its results. So I could sit here and say that now it's unfair, but look, dude, the fact that there's 5 big players, they're taking the big jobs. Let's watch. We're still a young company. Let's watch how they're performing. Let's watch the mistakes. Let's watch the wins that they grabbed. How much did they make of that? All right, study the game. And while you're studying the game, be getting your skin in the game. Because there will come a time where it'll be our time to take a chunk of market share. These things happen. There's times for things to happen. There's times for seed and there's times for harvest.
Of course.
So, in as much as we are miles apart in terms of size of company and growth potential, it's things that happen in the world that create opportunities. Donald Trump likes to say, never waste a good crisis.
Yeah.
It's about to be
he definitely took opportunity with a lot of them.
You know what I'm saying? And, I hate the guy, love the guy. The guy knows how to take advantage of opportunities and time. So, to answer your question, I believe that it's our time to grow. It's our time to study the game.
Yes.
It's our time to navigate and wait for our sniper opportunity. We will be able to be the
where
guys.
all the conditions
5
just
years,
align, yeah?
10 years, 15 years from now, there'll be another young Tiro asking the same question. How come Kayalako seems to be a monopoly in this thing?
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I put work in. Put your work in. Earn the ability.
Stripes,
Everyone is there, whether done it good or bad. Everyone is where they are because they earned it.
Yeah.
In this game, you don't get there in J. Like, it will expose you.
Very quickly.
It will expose you very quickly.
Yeah,
you said in shallow waters.
It's only when the tide is low we get to see you swimming naked.
There you go.
You then go and you start Kayalako, and I love how you mentioned you earning your stripes.
Yeah.
You're in residential. You started off residential, slowly making your way into commercial. And I suppose that's where you're earning your stripes. You're becoming a student of the game. So I did a bit of research, and real estate market in South Africa in general, in the next 5 years, it's projected to be going up by 2 digits. So it's about 10% in the next 5 years. And then on the flip side, the global market for smart home appliances is, almost growing at the similar rate in the next decade. It's actually up at plus minus 15-16%. Where's Kayalako positioning itself with those numbers? What's this being put in mind?
For sure. So we spend a lot of time, myself and my team, on research and development. It's huge for us. The reason being that if you don't give yourself time to see where's the industry going, you'll find yourself, getting taken by the tide unintentionally, like going that way when you wanted to go that way. So we spend weeks at a time just researching, developing, assessing our ideas. Now, when it came to this technological advancements in our industry, something that we've been studying for a long time.
Yeah.
However, to convert something into a business, you need to have at least some level of credibility, something to leverage. For some people, it's money. Maybe you would have worked hard the past 5 years, and you start to take company today. The opportunity was ripe because you did your research. So in this space of technology, something we've been for the longest time seeing and seeing what influence does technology have on architecture. And with that said, we are now moving into the artificial intelligence age, right? It's the information age. It's the age of enlightenment, and AI is making so many things easier for us, but not just easier for us as consumers, easier for us with business. Yeah. And when we look at the influence of technology in the space of architecture, most people think, oh no, this is going to take away the humanistic essence to it.
Of course, yeah.
But when we really look at it, us as humans, we're so imperfect. That's why we're so inefficient with certain things. Our buildings don't really use energy in the right way. That is self-sustaining for all of us. We don't. I mean, if you look at it, you flush a toilet, it's 10 liters
per flush.
Do you know how much water that is? So no wonder we're having water crises and things like that, because development's happening, but there's not enough development that is happening that is actually questioning the environment. And how can technology help us to create better buildings and better experiences in those buildings? And that's what smart home technology is about. So we've been working on a business model that would be custom made for us where we are, and be able to leverage what we've built in the past 4 years so that we tap into this game. We don't want to tap into it half-hearted. So we are going to be launching our very own products and service related to smart home technology, smart home systems.
That's exciting.
Your Googles, your Alexa, just making our buildings perform better, making our spaces more comfortable and accessible. So we've got Kayalako Properties,
sure,
which is going to be a division of Kayalako Properties, and Kaya just standing for knowledge at your access. So that's the Kaya.
Yes.
Obviously taken from Kayalako,
yeah.
But knowledge at your access, being able to access all the technological aspects of your home in the palm of your hands.
I like the what's this, the acronym? You manage to actually keep it. You don't need to change anything, but you still got it to be something else within that, which is quite smart. That's quite exciting. I'm gonna slowly move towards the ending of the conversation, but I will wanna speak to you about how you got to expand to other countries, because you guys operate in quite a number of countries around the world, and from there on, then also touch base on what's there, what are you guys working on currently, and what's there in the future. But speak to me about
how you got to expand. All right, so how we got to expand, for me it was very logical. When you're working on projects, you meet people. It's a people's game, and people are from different areas or different walks. They may be building homes here,
sure,
but they run businesses overseas. So I mentioned earlier that we invest a lot in research development. So the research, some of it is done overseas, some of it is networking overseas. So how we got to access initially is through our clientele. So we got clients from UK, got clients from Nigeria who perhaps are building here, but they're running businesses overseas. Got clients in the UAE for various scopes and phases of projects.
Okay.
Most of them have been residential. Most recently, we were in Dubai for a few months. And what's brilliant about what's going on right now globally is a global shift of resources. There's a global shift of you see, when you're looking at global shifts, remember the world is a business as well.
Sure.
These countries, they're not just countries, not just about heritage, it's a business. So it's all about trade. It's all about inviting smarter minds that are from countries that are, in have respective interests, have value already from your respective countries. So if we're in South Africa, we've got resources. And funny enough, in South Africa, when you look at our middle class educated individuals,
sure,
we've got some of the best universities in Africa.
Yeah.
So it only makes sense that we produce some of the most intellectual professionals. You guys are in media. You don't know it yet, but on a global market, you probably are part of a 10% of people that do it as well as you do, that take it to that level, that use social media, that know how to put together questions. You go to the average guy in Bangladesh, doesn't know how to do what you guys do. So South Africa is seen as that gateway to global markets. We're respected, in as much as you think that there's ignorance. Ignorance comes from people that aren't in business. People in business know exactly what we're capable of. So how we got into that is just through our clients, doing various scopes. We've been designing buildings overseas since I was in varsity.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's like freelancing.
Sure.
Fiverr is an app.
Yes.
App. So for architects, it's a whole nother game. It was the first time I ever had clients in Canada, clients in Netherlands.
Yeah.
Clients all over the world. There's countries I'm even forgetting.
Yeah.
But being able to work on design projects for them, seeing them execute, it just shows you that, hey, our skill we can export. So the stuff we're going to be doing in the UAE is really taking advantage of what's going on now with things like bricks. We're taking advantage of some of our clientele that's in the UK. Going to be, so immediately after UAE, we're going to be going down to the UK, checking out certain opportunities that are there, because like I say, it's the technological age, and a lot of the products that we're working on now, I'm not going to speak on them, but there's some technology that we're working on ourselves that we hope to export and sell those things online. So it's about getting to those countries, figuring out what it takes up to set up, what can we sell to this market, what are the benefits tax-wise, what are the benefits logistic-wise, strategically. Some countries are good for you from a distribution angle.
Sure.
You understand? I can have a company registered in another country just so I can have that address.
Okay.
Understand? Just so I can have that address, and then I distribute from there. But everything is online now. I don't need to be in the UK.
Yeah.
I don't need to be in Nigeria to transact with my Igbo brother there. You understand?
You literally took both questions and you were able to answer them. And now my closeout, brother, would be that and I want to put it in such a way that you are able to answer it, but also not feel uncomfortable, because I know a lot of times people, especially when they have to speak about themselves, they have this, I don't really, how do you stay motivated? How do you stay like wanting to do more?
I believe very highly that it's, you see, Tiro, let me tell you this. It's very recent that our people they did not have this opportunity. Right now, you and I, two black individuals, we're having an interview about business. This is mind-blowing. Just 30, 40 years ago, it was apartheid.
Yeah.
And then...
I mean, given also the location that we're in.
Yeah. I mean, in Bedford View,
we're
having an interview. All independent. Everything that's happening now is independent. Do you realize that 30, 40 years ago, this was impossible, unimaginable?
Sure.
And then 50 years prior to that, even worse. I mean, didn't even know what technology was 100 years ago.
Sure.
So the way my mindset, my mentality is that this is an opportunity for our generation only now to start building and stacking. So what motivates me, I'm not doing this for myself.
Yeah.
I'm very conscious of the fact that, we as Africans, we've been building for a long time.
Yeah.
Some of the world's greatest wonders were built by black people.
Yeah.
We've been building stuff for a very long time. And I think somewhere along the line, that information got lost.
Yeah.
And we look at ourselves now, because, I was in class, there was only I was one of four black guys in a class of 50. But when you look at when you look at the curriculum and what's put out, I don't see myself in the history books.
Yeah.
It's interesting. So my mentality is that I'm very conscious that I've got 20, 30 years to build something of cultural influence, of physical influence in the buildings themselves, because the buildings are going to live longer than me, even Kayalako. So I'm just focused on making my impact now. Yeah. It's not even about eating from it. It's not really about, because we touch money now as black people. We want to act like we've had this money for 200 years.
Yeah.
Sometimes we look like we're boiling bigger than people who've actually had it for 200 years, because people who've had it for 200 years, there's a certain discipline. So I'm focused right now on just, this is my time now. It's unfortunate that I wasn't a trust fund kid, and but heck, my son's gonna be rich, and his sons are gonna be rich. So I'm playing my role. That's what keeps me motivated. I can't wake up and think I'm gonna be lazy, I'm gonna chill and complain. It's gonna be complain about government. Crazy. This wasn't possible 20 years ago. I'm an architect now. Worked my ass to get here. I've got something that no one can take from me. So I wake up every day. I'm gonna be on that balcony. I'm gonna imagine some of the craziest things that I know my grandfather couldn't do.
Yeah.
and that in and of itself. I'm not going to tell you, it's not a car, it's not amount of money that motivates me to do what I do. It's the fact that, damn, this was damn near impossible.
Yeah.
Damn near impossible.
We're gonna do the final part, which is a quick. You're gonna choose between. I'm gonna give you two options, then you're gonna choose between. All right. Wine or whiskey?
Whiskey.
South Africa, Dubai?
South Africa. South Africa, every day.
Residential or commercial?
Business-wise, commercial.
And lastly, Kayalako or redefined properties?
It's obvious. Kayalako.
Thank you so much, Bill, for really sitting down with us, sharing this wealth of knowledge, and I think more importantly, being able to dissect the industry to the extent at which you've dissected it, and I hope that the people who are watching, you get to see what the conversation is about. You get to see beyond the conversation, and it gets to spark something within you, within the industry, whether you're jumping into property or you're an architect student or you want to get into property development, looking at what the industry looks like, and we're just really grateful that you've given us the time. You've welcomed us into your home, one of your homes, and we really get to do what we do. So this is Scattered in Conversation With, and today we had Bill Siziba, property and principal founder of Kayalako Properties. I just said property and principal founder. But the principal founder of Kayalako Properties, really overall standout guy. Thank you so much, and thank you for watching. I hate this part, but I'm going to say what: like, share, subscribe, comment.
No, you need to do
and
you need to do
but more importantly, learn from this and take the wealth of knowledge. Thank you for watching. Cheers.